which we called the Devil's Punch Bowl. I don't think that was its real name, but I know that at the bottom of this immensely long hill is a pub where the fire is never meant to have gone out. It's always perpetuated in the grate. Yeah. And that, to me, as a child, was, I mean, everybody who was in the car was told this in great detail. And this place, the Devil's Punch Bowl, which I can't think as I say that it was the most extraordinary valley. And the road, you just come off the road and suddenly this valley dips, falls right away. There's a farm right down in the valley. And in fact, when Finty was very little and Michael and I were up there, we took her, and this tiny little baby, we held her in front of this view. And everything blew backwards. And poor Finty, she was introduced to it very young. But it's a lovely place and somewhere I'd always like to go back to.
What were your early ambitions as a child?
My first ambition was to be the owner of a fish shop.
Really?
Oh, rivetingly.
Why? I mean, it was the smell of fish?
No, it's the look of it. It's the feel and the look of it. And we used to live outside York in a place called Heworth. I told you, York without. And under the Monk Bar, which we had to walk under to come from town, there was a fish shop. I don't expect it's still there now. But it was one of those fish shops where it's all marble and open, and water was running down. And the fish were all arranged in little circles, and the crabs and things like that. And very early on, I took some kippers from there.
You mean you stole?
Stole them. And my mother found out when we were in, you go straight back and take them back. It was a difficult thing to have to do, but it didn't cure me. I do love open fish shops. I love the look of it, and fish is such pretty colours, and especially when it's kept a bit damp. I mean, a herring under a bit of water looks so pretty, and place and the orange spots. And if you're lucky, a lobster or two. You don't see those much, but the prawns and everything. I love that, so I did want very much to have something to do with the fish.
But some people, of course, find the smell of fish offensive.
Yes, but I think it's the smell of bad fish that is offensive, not good fresh fish with the water running all the time. I'd see that my shop had that.
And kitchen smells, of course, can be marvellous.
Yes, all those usual ones like bread making, and which I don't do, and coffee and orange juice, and particularly a smell of a wood fire. That's lovely.
Yes, and a good curry.
Yes, a good curry, which lingers.
Certainly, 3 days for a good one.
At least, yes. Yes, I like all that.
Scents are obviously very important to you.
Yes, and I suspect that that when I was taken as a child to the York Theatre Royal, and the curtain went up, I could smell, there's a certain smell that came over the footlights, which I imagine was a kind of little seed that dropped down, which later was to be something I would remember. Also, in York, they used to clean the theatre with something. I think Jay's Fluid. And that smell, I used to love that smell and associate it with the theatre. And it wasn't till I came a long time later to Stratford with my parents, also before I thought of being an actress. There was a certain smell in the dress circle of the Memorial Theatre, as it was then at Stratford. Not the same smell as the Theatre Royal, but suddenly another smell that made me very excited. I've always associated it with Stratford, and I've always loved it.
Yes.
And I love those kind of things like, you know, the smell of real leather when you get into a car. Do you remember when you were a child and you burnt your car in the sun? You got into the car again and burnt the backs of your legs. But that wonderful smell of leather, I love that. And stationery, I'm very keen about that. New books. I love to smell the bindings of new books. And pencils, I like all those kind of smells. I'd like a stationery shop, you know, as well as a fish shop.
Liking pencils and crayons and that sort of thing, do you think that's something to do with having been a designer?
Probably. I mean, I find it irresistible to go into a shop and see rows and rows of pencils and crayons and paints and brushes and things, and empty books. I love empty books to draw.
They're so shiny, aren't they?
Aren't they? And so expectant. I love that. And I shouldn't say that I was a designer. I did train towards being a designer, but I did change my mind by going to Stratford and seeing, when I saw King Lear, Michael Redgrave as King Lear.
Yes.
And a wonderful set by Robert Cahoon. Amazing set that was just a rock, and it turned round in the middle of the stage, just this enormously bare stage, and this rock became everything. And I mean, cave and throne and everything, and I thought, this is supreme designing. And that's when I changed my mind about it. And maybe it was all those smells of the theatre that made me, and the fact that my brother had been an actor before me, had changed my mind.
And it wasn't long before you were working at Stratford.
No, and I remember at the time that I went and remembered that smell, I also saw Marius Goring in The Taming of the Shrew with Yvonne Mitchell. And afterwards, I was much too shy to go and ask for an autograph, but I did see him. I saw a matinee, and I saw him come out in a pair of grey trousers and a white shirt and post a letter in the box there. And I mean, that was for me a supreme, almost as good as seeing The Taming of the Shrew. And then it wasn't till years later when I went to Stratford in 1962 for my first season, and I played opposite Marius and Tom Fleming in Measure for Measure. And it was quite a long time before I told him that that I had seen him and admired him.
Yes.
I didn't think it was quite right to say as a schoolgirl, so I kept that going.
And he was walking about just like an ordinary
Just like
human
a
being.
perfectly ordinary person, Roy, posting letters like any of us.
Yes.
Quite shocking, really. I have another thing which I like very much, which because of talking about Stratford, it's reminded me. I don't know where this has come from, but when I was rehearsing The Winter's Tale with Trevor Nunn, I happened to say to him one evening, I think Barry Ingham and Trevor and I were all having dinner at the Duck one evening when we got very, very silly and laughed a great deal. And I happened to let go that one of my most favourite things, it must have been something happening with me growing up, some kind of vision that I'd had, was seeing a man sit backwards away on a chair with a towel around his neck and a great big watch. I don't know where this has come from. I've no idea. I can't remember the man. I just know that it's very disturbing for me to see this person sitting backwards away on the chair with a towel. And so the next morning when I went into rehearsal, there was a great line of actors sitting backwards way round on the chair. I hasten to add that they were dressed as well, not just in a towel and a big watch, but this wonderful thing. I like that very much. This is a great favourite thing of mine.
What about Stratford as a town, as a place?
Well, it's very bewitching to go up at the beginning of the season when the willows are just coming out and before all the tourists arrive. You're working there. You feel very much part of it. And it does weave a certain spell over you. And when you're during the season, it's a very curious feeling that people who come up to Stratford to visit you, somehow you feel very insular there. And they are like real proper visitors. They come and then they go away, and there you are in your little contained group. And what is very nice is at the end of a long summer day when everybody goes away and you're left in your own house and feeling part of the actual village itself. Town, I should say, town.
So Stratford and naturally Yorkshire, favourite places. Are there any other places that you particularly love?
Yes, I love Ireland because my mother was from Dublin and my father lived over there since he was a very little boy, and so all my relations, in fact, are over there. Well, nearly all my relations are over there. And I love Ireland, and I also love Scotland. And as far as I know, I have no family links with Scotland, though somebody only the other day said that they came across a Mrs. Dench who lived near Gairloch, who they thought was related. So I must follow that up if I can, because I feel very, very strongly about. There are certain parts of Scotland that I feel really passionately strongly about, and we try and go there as much as we can, and certainly once every year.
When you go to Scotland, do you like to move around? Do you stay in a favourite hotel?